All right, on WUSB 90.1 FM, Stony Brook. Happy trails to you. That's Susan DeVito from her new CD, Kama Sutra Rodeo, featuring Chris Patty playing the guitar and bass. And we're doing kind of like a world tune. It's got some Indian technique in there, plus a little bit of Charles Mingus. Da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. Interesting stuff, and the album cover is the only thing we're waiting for. So as soon as that's done, it'll be available for human consumption. But right now on Clam Radio, it's available to you. Before Susan, we heard from Brighton Beat from a new record that they just put out called Off We Go. We heard Fortune Teller. It is 10:09, and my guest is Bob Ball, computer scientist, just total madman inventor, and
computer repairman.
He actually cleans his own pool. He teaches his dog all these cool tricks and stuff. He's very cool.
Yeah, you could see my dog Trip dive on a YouTube channel, Ball Omni, Ballomni.
And people get angry because they think like you're forcing the dog to dive. He likes to dive. You're not.
I actually had to
stop him.
I had to coerce him to get him into the pool because he was basically a shoulder. He was tortured. Okay, so his first 3 months of life were not a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And but I could see that he had web feet, and I saw that you just have to fire them genes up, and once you fire them genes up. The rest, he would just be in a pool all day.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, literally all day. You'll see this foot jump. We closed the pool, and he was fighting to get into the pool. So
there you go.
Yeah. So
all right.
We were just laughing between the break about me fixing John's computer because he was like, whatever.
Yeah, I had a problem with it, and this like impossible thing he had to solder. Like I took it to someone. They said this can't be done. You can do this. Need a machine to do it. So I took it over to Bob's. He took a look at it. He got some solder out. And he's got very big hands. He's a big guy, Paul. And he just did like this. All of a sudden, like somebody just cut time out. All of a sudden, like it was there. And then he did it. Like all of a sudden, it was there. It was soldered. And he just.
Well, it's silver solder.
It was unbelievable.
Okay,
it was
you have to use a very special iron for that. And you have to light the iron. It's
it just like
I've been doing it since I was like 7. Okay, so so I was trying to tell John my back did it.
Yeah, his back did is what he's trying to tell me.
He just couldn't believe how fast it was done. I was like, done.
Anyway, let's get back to the meat and the potatoes of this.
The meat and potatoes
of this conversation. Now, what do you got going on there?
Okay,
you're talking about something.
What are the 3 holy grails of tech? We try to keep it positive. Last time I was here, we talked about Fukushima.
We're still talking about Fukushima.
Well, we're still talking. Yeah, unfortunately,
it's a nightmare, and
nobody's talking about it. I sent an open letter to. First, I sent it to Obama, and then I sent another open letter, which I published, and I sent it to Putin. And I know that it got to both of them. No joy on both. So, there it is. So, anyway, so the 3 holy grails of tech, which would, by the way, help us immeasurably across the board. Well, the first thing you always think about is power. Everything depends on it. So that's fusion, okay? The next one is, and we're going to go into the details of each one. And the next one is computing power. So that's photon, quantum, entangled processor. Really, there's a little bit of teleportation in there too. But anyway, that's like 1,000,000 times more efficient than anything, powerful than anything today. And then, of course, the room temperature superconductivity. So that gives you like 100% efficient motors and maglev trains and all kinds of really neat stuff. So the fusion. You want one chance?
Yes.
I'll give
what
you
about fusion? Cold fusion? Do we have cold fusion? Does it exist? Some people say, nah, it's never been tested. You're saying, no, they have it.
They have it.
Yeah. Who's they?
Google's actually running an ECAT system, which is an LENR. It's a low-energy nuclear reaction. Okay. It uses palladium and basically a catalyst. The box is put out about 15, from what I understand, 15 kV. It could be more than that, but there's like 148 of these boxes on 4 data centers. And they say it's a reformatter running on natural gas, but they've had spies on the internet. If you look at it, the amount of natural gas they're getting there will run like a couple ovens for their cafeteria, but it's not going to run a whole building of servers. So, yeah.
So they need that because they have so many servers there. They got to.
So basically, well, no. I mean, look, look. Google. I have no problem with what Google's doing, but it seems that only elites have access to that technology. Now, there was a picture of Google, Facebook, Zuckerman, Steve Jobs. I mean, all these leaders with Obama about 2 or 3 years ago, taken at a dinner thing, and lo and behold, like all these different types of texts came out afterwards. Supposedly, like new security protocols that you have to get, and get this new operating system because it secures all your stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Well, what it does is it gives I don't have a problem with the government's doing as far as one aspect of it. Okay, like a backdoor into your stuff, and a lot of people would have a problem with that. Because I'm talking about the bad actors out there. The problem is this. Once there's a back door into something, the government leaks. That's the problem. There's people who are dedicated employees of the government, okay, took an oath like I did, swears, tell a secret, the whole bit, okay, yes, we're not going to do any Quindy, it's not going to happen, blah, blah, blah. All right? But then there's others, okay, that turn around and leak the stuff for their own, personal gain in a Swiss-numbered bank account or whatever, and then the bad guys end up with it. So it's not hard, okay, once you have a back door into something, for the bad guys then to come exploit it, all right? And also, I don't know if really the good people are doing such great things with it. There's a lot of data mining that goes out there, and it's how Feinstein is worth $1.5 million, and then all of a sudden now she's worth about $150 million. It's making very good guesses on the market. So I'm really one of the people who I believe in the sharing of information, but I also believe in the privacy, so you can protect your intellectual property. As a person who's had their property actually stolen on numerous occasions,
yep.
I'm a real big proponent of protecting it, and I will leave certain key aspects of the technology out, and I've done that, and there it is.
Right.
Because if you don't, it'll just get stolen. And then they, you can't sue these people. They're big corporations, and they'll basically deliver a tractor-trailer worth of paper and motions to whoever your attorney firm is, and so there it is. It's kind of skewed to their side of the fence. And we were talking about the actual suppression of the technology. So, for example, fusion, cold fusion, positive, what was it, 75, 76 that came out with their papers, positive inflation?
I don't know.
It actually was not, it wasn't, it was real. They were really good chemists, really good scientists, and they developed cold fusion. And it would set everybody on their ear. But, okay, you had MIT, which was working in conjunction with the Department of Energy for a $2.5 billion tokamak that they built near MIT, next to MIT. It ran on helium-3. Actually worked. Okay, they didn't do anything with it because there's no natural source of helium-3. And by the way, that's fusion. But there is 2.2 million metric tons of it sitting on the moon. But so China, of course, is putting a lot of money into, I don't know how many billions of dollars they're putting into the space program, but they're going to town, and they're like, we're going to go get that material, we're going to go mine the moon, we're going to, they're determined to do it. Unlike us, we have literally no manned space program. Despite what our president promised the people down the Cape in 2008, 850,000 of them got fired. I mean, they laid off. You're talking about 35 years of manned space flight and the most brilliant people and all that experience, and it's gone. And you just don't turn a key and get that back. You just don't. So that's a huge loss for us. Fusion. And then, of course, you have CFR, which is that's kind of like a modified polywell design. There's kids, and any of you kids out there who are building a science project and building a polywell, please do me a favor, okay? Shield it, okay? And do your homework. Because anytime you start moving that many electrons, you end up with a tremendous X-ray source. And it doesn't seem like anything, but it's bad. It's a tremendous amount of ionizing radiation. And also, anything you make in there will be actually pretty lethal for the next 2 or 3 days. So, But anyway, they took that type of scheme, and they developed Lockheed Martin, they developed a fusion, basically a beta fusion reactor. It's a type of reactor that basically uses exponential types of magnetic fields out from a source. So as the plasma tries to leave where it is, where it's being concentrated, the magnetic bottle that's contained in is exponentially more powerful as it radiates outward. So because of that, it actually works really well, and it actually looks and works very similar to like a jet engine. And they're actually planning on using this on aircraft as well as existing power plants, and lots of really neat stuff. And they have a working prototype, from what I understand. And they're not letting anybody see it.
Of course.
They took some photos of it. Aviation Week did a whole article about it. But there's certain things that they want to keep secret, and you know what? I don't blame them. They patented certain aspects of it, but they're worried about like all of us. I mean, what's China's going to do is just take it and rip it off.
Yeah.
They don't want it. They put their own money in this, and
right.
we're talking about billions with a B, folks. They spent about $2 billion on this project researching this. Developing the alloys to contain it. And this is a small thing, so they'll be able to mass produce this and ship it all over the place. And believe me, they'll get a price tag for it. I mean, they'll probably license it like everybody with the software, right? So they still maintain ownership of it, some kind of leasing arrangement. Yeah, I mean, and that's real. Now, how quick could that be deployed? Hell, if the government got behind it, really, they could have it in place within 5 years everywhere.
Really?
Hell yeah.
No.
ECAD is online now. I mean, that's like I could give you a box the size of a file cabinet, put it in your house, and you have electrical and hot water for the next 15 years at a cost of about, I don't know what, 6-7 cents a day. Even if it was taxed at 100%, that's only 12 cents. That's for 15 kilowatts. So everybody, on the average, most people use between 13 and 15 kilowatts a day. The average cost of it, depending on the country and depending on where you're getting it from, is between $6 and $60. Believe it or not, if it's solar, it's about $60.
Yeah.
If it's wind, it's about $60. That's like the most expensive way to go. People are like, you're ditching stuff. Well, they don't. It's junk science. They don't do the math. You have to calculate the amount of energy to when it's actually manufacturing the solar panel. That includes the aluminum, the glass,
sure,
the silicon wafers, everything. Okay, and then the energy they'll never get the energy. So it's an energy transfer, and I'm not knocking the energy transfer. If you're off-grid home and you're in the middle of nowhere, you want that energy transfer. If you're on a boat in the middle of the South Pacific, you want that energy transfer. So you're getting that energy from wherever it was made over that period of time. But don't knock yourself that this is a source of power that you're getting, from the sun and whatever. No, in order to do that, you have to sum over that, right? A real solar power, believe it or not, there is solar power. We've been using it for thousands of years. That's right, wood. Okay,
that's interesting. Yeah,
wood is real solar power. Okay, why? Well, a tree grows. Okay, and its energy source is, guess what? It is the sun. Okay, now, okay, fine. So it uses nutrients and water and carbon dioxide that's in the air and everything else, and it produces oxygen. Yeah, but it uses those atoms, okay, to produce cellulose and other types of fibers that are in the wood. It stores energy. That energy is then stored. You cut it down. It doesn't take a lot of energy to cut a tree down. Okay. Find branches in the woods. I mean, people were scavenging, if you're camping, you scavenge stuff. A lot of these trees fall down, okay, because diseased, whatever, okay? Harvesting that wood and burning it, that is solar power right there, okay? It's, despite what anybody tells you, Franklin invented a stove that makes burning that 170 times more efficient than just burning it in the open air. So I have a wood stove that heats my house, and the wood that I get is from downed trees. So those trees will either rot and put out, methane or whatever, or they're heating up my home. And when you burn them in a wood stove, like I have a quadrifier, the particulate matter is almost nil. It's very, 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 very low. It's very efficient because it actually burns the combustibles in there 4 times. That's why it's called a quadrifier. So
right.
There is technology out there that actually, most of Vermont heats themselves up with wood,
Of course.
And it's not, they don't have to harvest the trees. The trees, from ice storms, regular natural things, the trees, fall. So that's real solar power. And you're getting more energy, okay, than you put into harvesting them. That's what I'm basically trying to say.
Right.
So, that's actually truly green. You have to always do the whole sum of it. Nuclear makes that up actually fairly rapidly because unlike a chemical reaction, a nuclear reaction, for example, a fission reaction, is about 2 million times you're getting out of the system. So, for example, when you have atoms that fuse together versus a chemical reaction, you're talking about a 2 million times amount of power, okay? E equals mc squared, so that's a lot of power.
So do you think we'll see cold fusion in our lifetime being like a normal thing, kind of?
Well, they have it now. So the question is, why aren't we allowed to buy it?
That's what I'm saying. Do you think that we will be able to have something like that, or that's just like 100 years down the road?
And the thing people don't understand is, if you really, look, oil, coal, all that stuff. I'm not a big proponent that it's being used to quote, change the climate. Okay, yeah. Does it pollute the water? Yeah. Does it pollute the land? Yeah. Does it pollute? Yeah. Is it expensive? Yeah. Okay. That's it enough. But it got us to where we are today. Okay. But the next level, and you want to make it go the way of the horse and buggy, it's very simple. Okay. Right now, it's priced between $6 and $60. That's the bottom line. If you come out with something that's priced between 6 cents and 14 cents, 14 cents being a lifter, which is a liquefied fluoride thorium reactor, well, I don't know, John. What would you rather pay, 14 cents a day or $6 a day?
Exactly.
I mean, it's not really hard to figure this out, folks, okay? And then what are these people going to do with all the oil stuff? Well, I'm like, well, that's their problem. You can't worry about that. People, look, all the barns and corrals and the shod people, right? As they call a shod person.
Yeah.
This is not my area. That, do the shoeing, they all had to learn new trades, and we were better for it, okay? And this will be the big thing is this, okay? When you have power that's that cheap, your manufacturing's down. Unbeknownst to many people understanding, okay, agriculture is actually the number one polluter of the planet. People don't understand it. Farming plants, number one pollution, okay? That's right. Now, when you have power like this, really cheap, clean, abundant power, all right? That means that you can have, Epcot Center to land kind of stuff, which means you can have fish farming, feeding plants, and then hydroponics and stuff. All of that needs power. You need lamps, UV lamps. You need electricity to run those lamps. You need electricity to run the pumps. You need heat, etc. and so forth. That's all power. But now you have decentralized farming. You can have farms growing in buildings, farm growing in a section of your basement, farm growing in your house, whatever. And you can actually harvest that food and grow that food yourself, and it's clean, and you don't need insecticides because there are no bugs, and there's, it's in a sealed environment. And so that now you're stopping famine. You're stopping the deforestation of the Amazon. You're stopping all these third world problems, okay? Because all of a sudden they have a box which is the size of a Coleman cooler that an entire village could plug into and get light, heat, hot water. Then the other thing is, of course, when you have these types of power systems, whether it's again, fission thorium, or whether it's a fusion, we have the ocean full of water, but we can't drink it. Well, now you have desalination plants, okay? With a thorium, you don't have to do it electronically. A thorium reactor works at, really the sweet spot on that is between 400 and 650 centigrade. So you have plenty of excess heat used that you can boil, all the seawater you want. And so you can make, fresh water, like crazy. And that's a huge commodity. Again, you're talking about, in areas all over the world, water is a huge problem. And now all of a sudden, like in California, you have a huge drought. Well, if you just put 10 of them in all the major cities, okay, and everybody's like, but it's nuclear. Well, like cars, folks, there are dangerous cars, like a Pinto and, what was the other one? The Chevy. Ford was the Pinto. The other one was the Vega.
Yeah,
the ones that blew up when you hit them in the rear.
That's a problem. I didn't think of that.
So there are dangerous things and everything. So the light water fission reactors that are running today are basically 1953, really 47 technology, and really haven't been modified that much, and they're very inefficient. I mean, when you're talking about solid fuel reactors like uranium, the first process that happens, you produce krypton, you produce xenon. Those are gases, and because they're being produced in the heart of the pellet, essentially it's a salt that's a pellet, you start getting fissures and cracks within that pellet, and it starts to expand, and then you have to get the xenon. And xenon is it's a hard neutron absorber, okay? So you don't want it in the fission reaction, because what happens is that it shuts the reactor down. But internally it's building up pressure. So this is a bad design. I mean, this is bad. Okay, there's just and really, so what you end up with is really in those rods that you see them putting in and stuff. And then, like every 18 months, they got to rotate them and they got to shut the reactor down. And in pools, and you have. I mean, today I think we have what did I write down? It's like 8 million tons of waste.
Yeah, 8 million.
8 million tons of radioactive waste throughout the world. Okay, a real great way to get rid of that waste is actually with a liquefied thorium reactor. You could actually transmutate it because you end up with a very consistent neutron source. So you can actually use that, combine it with a fluoride salt. You can actually use these reactors to actually clean up waste, transmute it into a salt that's harmless. Okay, essentially you can actually get energy from the waste, and then who's on the phone?
I don't know.
It could be Gary. Gary might call up. I told him what was going on today. So we have all these conversations online. So who knows?
Go ahead.
So at any rate, these are all useful things. Okay, and because it's in a molten salt, you're going to say, well, what it'll run away? No. Basically, if you lose power, there's a salt plug that melts, and then the reactor drains into a drain tank. And since the drain tank doesn't have a whole bunch of graphite rods, which the main reactor vessel has, there's no way to sustain the criticality of it, and thus, the thing goes cold and it just becomes one big rock hard salt. So it's very safe. It's an extremely safe technology, and since it's not working on pressure, you don't have to worry about the thing blowing up. I mean, that's the thing about light water reactors. Using water. Water doesn't have a lot of leeway in its temperature. It's only 100 degrees Celsius. You can really use water as a coolant, and then so you got to use it at 2,000 psi. It's almost 70 atmospheres. It's not. That means you have to build everything really thick and and everything has to be really. It's just not good. It was great for running a submarine or something like that, but even these things are just. It's just like anything else. It's just we don't use vacuum tube computers anymore. Those types of light water reactors are essentially vacuum tube computers. So you really want to. So there is a stopgap technology. That's thorium. Okay, we could use that. It's abundant. It's loaded all over the place with rare earth mines. And then we have cold fusion. Now cold fusion, we already have it, but that's not a lot of power, really, when you think about it. I mean, they're 15 kV. So to really, when you build a power plant, you're talking about 250, 500 gigawatts. You need some power. You don't even want like megawatts now. You want gigawatts, in order to offset your cost, right? So there you're talking about larger fusion. That's helium-3 based fusion, and with that technology, that'll give you to give you an idea how powerful that is. 100 pounds of this stuff would produce all of the electricity that the continental United States uses in a year.
Wow, that's impressive.
So it's clean. It produce carbon from the reaction. So there's no radioactive waste. Okay, and then with the next technology, which is what we were talking about, is computing power. Okay, so again, we're using technology right now, which is really in essence, and everybody's going to write in on me on this. I'm going to explain myself. It really hasn't changed. Okay, the actual way computers function today is really no different than the spacecrafts that went to the moon. You're like, what? No way. Well, no. The actual way, the binary works. It's essentially, they're all basically adding machines. Okay, the thing that has changed is we've gotten them smaller, layered, more of them. More transistors, layered transistors. But really, what really is evolved, and the real genius that's making all this stuff work, is the software.
Yeah.
You have software, literally hundreds of millions of lines of code, that really is a cheat. It makes this thing seem like a magic box. It makes it seem like it's actually doing something that it's not. But it's actually extremely limited. Okay. Computer scientists out there know this, okay? But if you have a photon processor, that's a processor that's based on light, unlike an electron, where in a register you either have an electron or you don't. So the electron that's present, well, then you have a 1. If it's not present, you have a 0. But with a photon processor, you can have 8 colors, for example, okay? So now you have 8 different types of photons that could be in there, okay? So it could be red, it could be green, it could be blue, it could be... The point is that now you have a bit register that's at different states.
Right.
Okay. Then you have quantum coupling, which means entanglement, and then you have color subtraction addition. What you really end up having is a processor that actually can do real math, okay, unlike the additions that go on today. Because really, folks, that's all it's doing. It's just doing an addition. Really, all the ALUs, if you look at them, it's just a fancy form of this code, and that makes it work. It's just really doing an addition. Versus now you actually have real logarithms. So you can actually produce a real natural logarithm. You can actually produce real math. That's a factor of power of over 1 million times more than what we have today. Combine it with holographic storage, you could produce a holographic storage device the size of a roll of paper towels that literally will fill all known knowledge, all the websites, all the data records, all the medical offices, everything on the entire planet. And you'd still have 2/3 of that space left in that roll of paper towels left for data if you holographically stored the data.
Wow.
Okay. John's going to say, well, why do we have that? No. MIT just developed some of the first quantum level stuff, but it's just on a one chip level. It's on a one thing level. So, but we have teleported photons 39 kilometers now. The record is, and we've done all kinds. So that's why I keep getting back to the moon. If we want to go to the moon, Mars, we need these three technologies to do it. You need to have fusion, because they need to have power for 3 years without thinking about it.
Right.
Okay. It has to be safe power. They have to be able to get what they need, in the environment. Okay. To power it. Okay. And they need it. They need power. Okay. Then you need a computer that's going to be really powerful. But if there's a CME discharge from the sun, it's not going to fry everything.
Right.
And of course, a photon-based computer, with fiber optic cables, is not going to care.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like, oh yeah, so what? It's not going to get fried, okay? So, because, you have, whether you're using lithium niobate crystals, or you're using, believe it or not, salt, or whatever you decide to use as your medium that's inside this processor, it's not going to get fried. It could be diamonds for all I know. I don't know. Okay, point is, it's going to work. Okay, it's not going to be affected. And then, the other last part, and what do you get with the computer like that? Oh, I don't know, like the next math. Predict the weather for the next 6 months. Maybe even predict earthquakes.
Sure, you could.
Okay, it'll give you your next fusion reactor, which is tritium-based or seawater-based. So we don't even have to go to the moon to get our stuff. We can just get it out of the ocean. So because you have such a complexity, you can actually simulate these things. New types of aircraft, spacecraft. Cure cancer, cure HIV. I mean, literally.
Right.
That's what that type of computer does. So the side benefits are just incredible.
And that would take us to what kind of civilization, though? At that point, we'd be.
Well, if you get superconductivity, which is the next the icing on the cake, right? Because now you can transmit power with zero loss. You have 100% efficient motors. You have maglev trains or Skyrail trains, whatever you want to have. Literally, oh man, it just. All these, on an individual basis, each one of these things are huge. They're huge game changers. Combined, that gets you to a Type 1 civilization. And by the way, the types from 0 to 6, that's Michio Kaku's definition in his book about different types of civilization. Type 1 civilization is basically people who can travel inside a solar system and maybe even travel to another close star like Alpha Centauri is like what 4 trillion miles, something like that, in a way. Type 2 is, they can travel within the galaxy, and beyond. Or type 3 is like, really going places. And I guess, type 5, 6 is like intergalactic and, whatever. I'm just worried about getting to a type 1. I mean, the superconductivity alone will give you a railgun, okay? Everybody's like, what are we going to do if an asteroid comes? Well, there it is. You have a superconductive magnets, okay, room temperature. Oh, dude, you could shoot stuff, from wherever and just obliterate it, okay? So, they detect this asteroid coming, and it's last minute. It's going to hit us in 3 hours. It's not a problem, okay?
Yeah.
They could vaporize it without even thinking about it, okay? It's like a gauze cannon on steroids. And that's pretty meaningful. I mean, I'm sure that, everybody's trying to save the whale. Well, you know what? These asteroids kill whales too. Okay,
They kill everything.
It kills everything.
Okay, not prejudice.
The one that just missed us now. There's one that just missed us on its satellite. It was pretty big, but there's one that missed us. they were like, oh, shoot, it just kept up on us,
Well, the one in Russia, actually.
Yeah. Well, there was this other one that went through the
nothing.
atmosphere that was about the size of Manhattan. Yeah. So they're out there,
Yep.
There's one that's the size of Texas. These are not good.
No.
Okay. If they hit us, it's like it just kills everything. Okay. And some of them are so bad that if it hit us, it would even kill bacteria. There would be nothing left. It would vaporize the entire ocean. And
right.
blah, blah. So we're the first species on this planet who can actually, make a difference. Remember, folks, everybody's about all this evolution stuff. Well, the dinosaurs were here for 150 million years. I don't see any dino satellites and roads or moon bases left by the reptile race, okay? And they were wiped out. We don't have to be wiped out. We even understand what the problem is. We understand the threat. And we have to rise above, our own jealousies and get beyond that and realize that, that's what the other thing these things do. You have this type of technology. It's like Star Trek kind of deal. It's not long if you have this kind of computing power and that kind of power. It's not long before you have a box like a microwave oven. You say, I want my tea.
Right.
I want my perfect apple pie. I want, is this going to cause a whole new type of obesity? Well, maybe, but maybe you could have it taken out of your gut or something. I don't know. But the point is that you're not going to want for those things. Okay, they already have replicators now that can print metal.
They have things that print stuff. Exactly.
Yeah, and what it is it's a bunch of laser beams that they put this powdered metal on, and it literally builds it up layer by layer by welding little pinpoint things, and it builds up layer by layer by welding these little pinpoints of metal together.
It's amazing. That's cool.
So where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
And just think like if you had a leadership like Kennedy who puts a focus on something. And that's why you need to focus on the moon, Mars, and beyond, because it not only gets us off the planet, but it gives us a constructive use for the technology,
right,
as well as formidable goals that have all these sites. I mean, the moon speech that he said then is the same thing today, it has all these. I mean, that 9 years was a renaissance. It changed everything. It changed music. It changed social well-being. It changed the ideas that anything is possible. I mean, when you had a man walking on the moon. I know flat Earth people say, I'm out of my mind, and the sun was, 32 feet across, and, so-and-so. I mean, yeah, I get all that.
Yes, the sun's 32 feet across.
Yeah, right.
We all know that. It's clear.
I mean, right. It's like, it's some kind of weird, really, really crazy thing. I was watching some last night, because I was going to send you the link on it. It was just too crazy to even send you. That's how crazy it was. It was really crazy stuff. And there's the other side of it, which is like Bob Lear. That's crazy too.
Yeah.
There's atmosphere on the moon, and there's a whole planet of people, and it's on the other side, and yeah. And the moon has 60% more gravity than they're saying it has. It's like 65% of the Earth and everything else. Yeah. If you do the math on that, not only is the moon wrong, okay, we would not have a tide, okay, like we have here, okay. We would have a tide that's about 150. We'd be having tsunamis twice a day, okay. They kind of got a tsunami, like if in the Gulf of Maine, it's about an 8-foot tide that comes in. Sometimes it's 4 feet, sometimes 8 feet.
Right.
So when they said the tide's coming in, they mean it, okay? Because they have like a 14-foot tide there total,
right.
But we would have like 100. We would have 100-foot tides every day. Yeah, pretty hard to build anything. Now there was a time when there was that, when the moon actually is moving away from us every year. So
it was closer at one point, sure.
Yeah, right. So when the moon was much closer, because it was synchronized to the Earth that was spinning actually faster. So the moon is actually escape velocity. There was those types of tides, and a lot of people think that in order for life to have happened, you needed that and everything else. I think what you need in order to have the climate that we have, you need the moon to stabilize the Earth, which it does.
Yeah,
it stabilizes the precession of the Earth. It's actually very good for it, but it's a freak. I mean, I can understand why his Bob Lear. People don't know who that. He's the son of what was it, John?
Yeah,
John Lear. Actually, was good friends of my father. John Lear actually developed Motorola. He patented the circuit, which basically suppresses the spark in a car. Back then, in order for you to have a radio in your car, you'd be listening to the spark gap of the thing. It was this nasty static, so really you had to shut the car off in order to listen to the radio. He invented this radio that didn't do that.
Right.
But he was in partnerships with these people, and he sold that company. And then he was working for an offshoot of Lockheed. It was a private jet thing. He was buying the jets from Lockheed. He was making them for the military, modifying them to make them, personal jets. And then he decided to go into his own thing. Anyway, so his son, became a pilot and everything else. I don't know how old he is, Bob Lear. At any rate,
not too much younger than he's got to be in his 40s.
No. So he's like, whoa. And I don't know whether he's just putting this out just to do like a total diss on the information, because he kind of exposed some types of secrets. So maybe he's coming up with all these things just to, a lot of people think that's why he's doing it. He's coming up with all these other things just to make him look like a nut, because they basically gave him a choice, which is possible. I don't know.
No, he's big on saying that some of the stuff was advanced by alien technology that we got from crashes and things like that. I don't know.
Well,
Roswell, I'm sure it happened. I don't know why we'd have to cover it up.
Well, again, you don't need 3 cargo planes, 8 trucks, and 2 hangars to hold a balloon.
A weather balloon. It makes no sense.
That fits into a Jeep.
Yeah.
So something happened.
Right.
Okay. What my father saw and what Gordon Cooper saw, those are 2 incidences. I know of a total of 6, but those are the 2 I'll talk about. Those 2 incidences, both of those gentlemen, who I knew personally, they knew that it wasn't the Russians, okay? They also knew that they didn't know that, you have to understand, both of these guys were in the test pilot program, so, although everything's in a need-to-know thing, they knew that nobody could be in some kind of aircraft that's flying at 700 to 800 miles an hour and then all of a sudden make a right turn at 90 degrees and accelerate to plus 5,000. Mm-hmm. So they no. My father knew at the time, which was very top secret. He knew about the SR-71. He knew about the XR-15. He knew about all those types of things, which, of course, did not do that. Aurora, which was really a platform that was made and running, since 87? Is that classified? I don't know. At any rate, I didn't just say that.
We'll censor that out later.
Pulse detonation engine. That's got to be common knowledge, right? Aviation, we got to talk about that. Anyway, or LS1 through 7, it's got to be out there. I don't know.
Nothing does that kind of maneuver that we know of that humans have built, as far as I know.
Well, look, this is the thing. This is what you have to say to yourself about that. Is it possible that we turned around and developed technology from this stuff? Sure. Okay. But would it take a piece of time? Yeah. If I took my van, for example, okay, it's a 2002 E350 Super Duty 7.3 liter turbo diesel, okay, and I took this thing and somehow I time machine and I went back to, say, the West, okay, 1865. All right. So now I'm in the West, 1865, okay. That thing's going to seem like, what is this?
Yeah, try to figure out what's going on with it.
And they're just looking at it, How long do you think it would actually take them to start it? Even if the keys were in it. What if the keys were not in it? What if the keys were underneath the carpet? Okay?
I don't know. That's a good question.
This is what you have, but this is what you have to think about, okay? Now, they had no electronics. They had a telegraph, okay? But they didn't have electric light, okay? Now, this is a diesel engine which runs at, which has injectors that go up to 60,000 psi, which has a turbo, a computer that runs those injectors, the piezoelectric valves that open with hydraulic pressure behind them that does the mechanical advancement of it.
Interesting, yeah.
And a torque converter for transmission and huge power. We're talking about that thing pulls 14,500 pounds, okay? So, yeah. All right, so you're talking about dragging houses around, that they have in the West, literally dragging them off of wherever they are. And, hey, you want to move it? No problem. I'll just move it down the street. No problem.
Right.
That's the kind of power you're talking. They don't have anything like that. 440 horsepower, 750 foot-pounds of torque. Okay, air conditioning, the works. There's a TV, a VCR, and a
Yes.
DVD player.
And
So you're talking about how long would it take them to figure any of this stuff out? Okay, to actually get it to work. So say it was in working condition, not crashed, because remember these things. The alien spacecraft that crashed. Obviously, there was some type of malfunction.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they didn't want to be seen. A lot of people don't realize that we have cloaking technology now. So we're doing light bending and cloaking stuff now, making things invisible. Well, yeah, we're doing it now. And it's 2015, and we probably had the technology for 15 years. Well, they say these people are 10,000 years, 1,000, even 1,000 years ahead of us. Most likely more advanced than that. They could be right next to us. We wouldn't even know it.
Yeah, exactly. I tell them, you don't even know.
You wouldn't even know it, okay? And you're going to say, well, why are they here? Well, we watch reality TV. I mean, it's entertaining.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is that, they don't want us for our tech. Certainly, they don't need us for our biology.
Right.
I mean, it only right now they take DNA from somebody. They just take a cotton swab and do your cheek. Well, do you think these people even need to do that? No, they could probably do it from orbit or whatever. And like I said, if they're right next to you, how would you know if you pricked you, whatever? You don't know, okay? And we're all speaking hypothetically, okay? But the point is that let's just talk brass tacks. So now this thing's crashed and it's not functioning, okay? Versus my van, and the premise we have, it's fully functioning, okay? Mm-hmm. And we could see that it would be very difficult for them to get it to go. And then when it ran out of fuel, what are they going to do?
Right, exactly.
Okay. Now somebody might smell and say, you know what, this smells a lot like kerosene. They had kerosene. Like, wow, they put kerosene and all of a sudden it works. Okay. So there might be some smart people to get this thing to sustain to run. Okay. So they get it to run. Okay, fine. How do they make it?
Yeah.
Okay. How do they do the metallurgy? Okay.
Yeah, right, exactly.
How do they do, we're talking about steel, cast iron with steel sleeves, aluminum piston rings. Some of the tolerances are down to thousandths of inches.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I mean, exactly. Not something that they're going to be, So, and then they have to understand all these shotgun cables are right, because it's all the injectors are digital. Shotgun cable for that. There's a high-end, high bypass alternator, power systems, and everything else. They don't know what that alternator. They don't know what it does because the components inside there are just, they're just chips.
Yeah.
So what is that? So it's going to take time. All right, and that's our van. And the difference between 1865 and now, it really isn't that much.
No, it's not.
There's still a lot of things we're still doing the same way. Go to the dentist for crying out loud.
Yeah.
I mean, you're in Doc Holliday's office.
I know, right.
And they might have better drills, but it's the same,
Same kind of
medieval
thing,
crap that they're doing.
Yeah, I know. It's unbelievable.
So
I know it well. I hate
so,
that.
so some things have advanced. Some things, Well, now you're talking about, a new type of metallurgy, a new type of flight control system, a new type. I mean, obviously they have photon computers. Obviously they have fusion. They might even have anti-gravity. Mm-hmm. Most likely they do. Because remember, folks, gravity is not really real. It's really an effect of an acceleration. So, so there are ways, they've probably got all that solved. Okay. They certainly would have cloaking solved.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
They probably have some kind of interdimensional drive or warp drive or something. And so then you're saying to yourself, well, how do you derive technology from that? It's pretty hard. Because when that was 1947, and say there was stuff early now. Okay, well, it's even worse. But just say 1947, because we know that.
Right.
Majestic 12 is real. The magic stuff is real. I mean, all that stuff is real. The documents are real. I mean, so it happened. How long would it take you? And what would be the race for it? Well, you made a big mistake. You're Truman. Okay, so here's Truman, and he realized really in 1947, before then, he effed up. Okay? Well, how do you screw up? Well, he should have listened to the generals, Eisenhower, Brady, Patton, MacArthur, Malley, okay, all telling him, Stalin was going to be this. So what happened? Well, a year and a half after the war to end all wars, World War II is over, Russians make a detonation, they got the bomb. And, the sky's falling, right? I mean, duh. Okay, why? Well, some say it was the scientists that they got... Yeah, right, sure. No, they stole it, okay? They had spies. Why pay for it when you can steal it, okay? Soviets learned that a long time ago. You want technology? Put some spies in the United States. That'll give you the technology. So what do you think the Soviets wanted? Well, if you're the United States and you're looking at an aircraft that has unbelievable amounts of technology, you're going to say it was a weather balloon too. Or you're going to say it was Mogul, or was this. You're certainly not going to spill out what they first said, okay? Just like when Jaeger broke the sound barrier, they had to keep that all hush-hush. Meanwhile, well, you can't say anything. And it got into that whole mentality of, the Cold War. Not even 4.5 years later, we're in Korea with a war.
Just keep them coming.
Okay, and then after that, they didn't know about the Chinese. I mean, you start looking at these things. Okay, you didn't know this, you didn't know that, and you start saying stuff. Well, who are these people saying that they didn't know? And what happened to them when this happened? Were they fired, or did they get even a bigger budget?
Well, anyway, I'm talking to Bob Ball, by the way, in case you're wondering after all this talk. Bob Ball's a computer scientist, and we were talking about the three holy grails of technology, and we only unfortunately have 5 minutes left.
5 minutes, wow.
It's just so many things to talk about. It's hard to know when to interject because everything is connected to everything else here. So, in 5 minutes, what would you like to say to the public out there? Other than Fukushima, we got to fix that.
Well, if it's
possible.
What people have to do is they have to write the congressman, or actually, if you're looking for your next president, he has to speak about these three techs. The three techs are fusion, photon, quantum computing, okay, and a room temperature superconductor. And you get that by doing a manned mission to Moon and Mars and beyond. And it has to be government stuff, okay? I mean, just to build a factory, just to build the crystals, okay, for a photon computer, you're talking about $2.5 billion, 90,000 square feet, and the room that actually has to build it is about, 500,000 times cleaner than an operating room. So it'll take even a year just to get it clean enough to even grow the stuff.
Right, but it's not a lot of money. Mere bag of shells, considering trillions of dollars.
Well, consider the fact that this administration spent $12.5 trillion in the past 6 years. And do you realize that's the same? That's more money than George Washington to George Bush 43 spent combined and then some. And we went through World War II, all that funding, all those ships. I mean, not that I'm for all these. I'm not, okay? But the thing is that, we have got nothing to show for this. We don't have maglev trains, So we need to have, and it's the power of the people, folks. You stand up and say, no, we want this. This is what we want our money to go into. And we need these technologies. And believe me, we will become the economic leader in the world. Everybody will have jobs. And we'll be off this planet, and we can save ourselves and do a whole bunch of great things. So that's what I have to say. And capping Fukushima, you could even stop if you really had a real fusion reactor, okay, real one running. Technically, you build 4 or 5 of them, you could stop Yellowstone from erupting. You could freeze that magma pool, which is because you could produce, liquid helium. You could produce it, and you could literally drill into that thing and freeze it.
It's a good idea.
That's what technology can do. Technology can really do amazing things.
Yeah. And on that note, folks, we're going to have Bob back because it's too much to cover and so little time to do it, unfortunately. And it's hard to try to get everything to the point where it's understandable. And you can listen to this program again in case you might miss something at WUSB.FM. Just go to our little website there. You'll see the little Clam Radio and click on the little icon. And I want to thank you. Thanks a lot, Bob, for coming down.
Thank you, John.
He'll be back again. Bill McNulty is up next here on USB. Take a listen to the concert billboard, and we'll see you later. Hopefully we won't have another snowstorm we have to deal with, but you just never know. It's not over yet.